Hey, what's up everyone? Alex here, back with another opening video, and today is going to be the 105th opening that I'd like to share with you, which is the Lysons opening. So Lysons, that is the name of the license opening. So it's essentially kind of like a sub-variation of the snake opening. So let's pretty much start off with the usual sequence to the diagonal, and then finally down here, and then followed by either one of this. It's symmetrically same. So over here, when black goes for the snake variation, which is something that I've tried myself as well. So typically you would expect maybe the standard variation to be here, and then there's one more move here, which is the license opening, and something that blocks out and leads to something called the Tsuchinoko, something that we'll cover in the next few episodes. So over here, I'd like to quickly touch on the license opening over here. So this one is essentially the start of the opening. So I would say this opening kind of is a variation that white actually selects as a white diagonal player. So we'll probably be talking about this from a white's perspective. And usually this is done when, black plays a snake opening and you play the white license opening. So I would say this kind of opening basically gives white more options and probably a lot easier to playable. So the typical sequence that most players play is to play black over here to regroup, white jump in, black jump in, so that's the typical sequence. Another playable sequence is for black to jump in here, and then white basically either just do like a kind of like a parameter to kind of regroup next. Because if white were to jump in and regroup, it allows black to jump in as well. So this is also possible, but you give black an easy move, quick response over here. Then white can probably play on the tail end of this being the head, and then tail. So the tail end, or just jumping simply into the center just to regroup. So that's basically a couple of options that you have for white playing the license opening. So I would say it's a pretty straightforward opening and easy to play for white. So if you're playing as a white diagonal player and you're up against a snake opening, this is probably a variation that you might want to consider, considering that the typical response for the snake opening is to kind of go to the normal variation over here. So yeah, let's see. So let's just return to the earlier shape. So typically when you go to the snake variation, if you were to play the usual one, maybe a snake opening player would be very familiar with this one, but this kind of gives sub variation and a sense of surprise factor to it. So I would say this is probably pretty strong, and I think this is something that I've observed across Japanese players playing the white diagonal opening. So another variation that we talked about was for black to jump in here, white to jump in over here. This is kind of like a standard play out. Black can either play here or here. So black plays here, white takes this, black plays here, and then white will probably take this, which is pretty normal. And then black could either take an immediate cut back into the center or do a feed and penetrate, like feed and center. So feed and just cross back into the center perhaps, and then maybe white can go either one of these moves. It's also playable. So I would say this opening probably gives both sides a bit of a playable sequence, probably not too difficult. So if you are somebody playing as white diagonal and you're playing against a very strong player using a black snake opening, maybe this is an opening that you can probably consider to try to keep the differences, at least pretty close coming out of the opening and into the mid game. So I think that's all I have for you today, and thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you at the next opening video. Goodbye.